defined the four basic terms of sin, and we spoke about the four consequences of sin: legal, social, moral, and theological. And of course, when one transgresses, however one defines sin, there are implications to it. One of the interesting examples that we'll talk about a little bit later on is the case of adultery. Adultery is interesting because it's a case where a man and a man sleeps with a married woman, and the child is what's known as a mamzer. Mamzer is an incestuous child. Now over here, nobody's going to hold the child responsible. The child is morally clean as well as theologically clean, obviously. However, the child has to suffer from certain both legal and social sanctions. It's one of those famous cases of what one could see as an injustice in the Jewish legal system. Why is it so? One has to ask the question. The child didn't do anything wrong, and yet the parents did. Child shall suffer because of this. Now, when you have a situation like this, and the child is morally and theologically innocent, yet must suffer various legal and social sanctions, halakha strives mightily to incredible degrees to cleanse that child of the legal and social sanctions. And then one wonders, well, if halakha is going to do that, then why are they there in the first place? And then one has to try to somehow understand the ebb and flow of the legal system, wherein it tries to have its cake and eat it, and it wants to, perhaps one can argue, Manuel Rackman, who is a very fine legal mind, tries to argue that Jewish law often will try to have its cake and eat it, where it's going to take certain transgressions and subject them to both legal and social sanctions, and yet cleanse it afterwards, in which case the parents should be aware of what they're doing that's wrong and realize its implications, and then if it doesn't work, then they will think there's going to be a sanction against the child, and then ultimately you try to cleanse the situation. So in that situation, you want to try to have it both ways. So we'll get to that later on. Now, as we mentioned, not every crime or sin has theological and or social legal implications. And we have to, as we go throughout our texts, we have to try to figure out what are the social and legal and theological implications. When someone transgresses, as we said, biyad rama, that's one story. When somebody does something that's privately, a private transgression, it's a different story. We then try to figure out if our definition of het, avon, and pesha, each different, het, innocent, off the mark, but transgression nevertheless, avon, intended perversion, pesha, rebellion, actually holds up throughout what we call trans-biblical study. We mentioned, for example, when Yosef says, if I sleep with you, wife of Potiphar, hatati ledokim. Now, het means you're not really intending to sin. It's not a rebellion against God. It's not really all that perverse. And yet it's a sin, it's off the mark. It's not what God really wants. Does that make sense in that context? It's an interesting claim then, if we do see it this way, because then the passion felt would serve almost as a, in quotes, legitimate excuse, one second, to transform this from an avon to a het. Here you have consenting adults. She wants to, assuming he had this interest in doing it, and he does not because, not yet. She's not here yet. Okay, so now one has to try to evaluate what goes on when consenting adults are involved in this illicit relationship. And here Yosef makes the point, let's talk about that. Similarly, one of the difficult areas is when you look at the Ten Commandments, Shemot Kaf. Does everyone have a chumash, or more or less? Pass them down. Shemot Kaf, Perek Kaf, Pasuk Vav. In one of the most problematic of verses, and we had seen this verse within the context of idolatry. We have this pasuk, Poked avon avod al banim al shirashim arabim usone'ai. Here God takes note of the avon. Again, avon is not a het, it's not a pesha. Avon is not an accidental, off-the-mark transgression, nor is a rebellion. Avon is what you would call intended perversion. God takes note of this intended perversion of the fathers on the banim, on the children, on the grandchildren, on the great-grandchildren, Lishon Ayin. So of course, the question would be raised, right? You see it?
It's 5.
5, sorry. I have it as 6. Oh, it's 5, yeah, 5 is Lishon Ayin, right? I have it as 6.
6 is 6.
Okay. Okay. In any case, the question over here is trying to figure out why does the Torah first of all use the word avon here? God takes note of the avon, not of the patient out of the head. Why is it so? This avon is not a rebellion against God, nor is it accidental. Why should God take note of this on the head of a child? Why should the child be held responsible for the perversion of the parents? Now, let me ask you a question. Could you think of any transgenerational element to sin? Is there any transgenerational element to sin? Or any behavior? Right.
Yeah, the parent does it, the kid
Well,
Kid follows the parent.
Okay, so that's on a social psychological level. Let's say on a,
Physical.
well, is there any truth to the statement that the children of alcoholics are going to become alcoholics?
Yeah.
Very high correlation.
I'm sorry? There is high correlation. The question is,
abuse, child abuse.
okay, good.
Everybody in Kovalim, that you have dysfunctional families, the children usually are also dysfunctional.
That's for sure.
Families.
Yeah, that makes perfect sense. That's on again, social psychological level. But I'm wondering if one even goes beyond that. It's not only a question of perceived behavior of the children to the parents.
You mean genetically?
Well, they're wondering about that.
Genetically or medically?
Genetically or medically, right. Certainly, obviously, a woman who drinks while she's pregnant, the fetus could suffer from what's known as fetal alcohol syndrome, right? FAS. Very serious disease. And in many cases, there are obvious implications for what a parent does to a child on a social psychological level, as well as a behavioral level, and sometimes, obviously, on a genetic level. Now, the cutting edge of genetics, people are raising questions as to whether or not there are genetic markers for crime, right? How would that be? Well, what is compassion? Is compassion an emotion that we feel? Is compassion a learned behavior? Are some people naturally more compassionate than others? Think about your kids. You all, have kids 1, 2, 3, and 4, and whatever. Do certain of your kids feel more sensitively at a young age, at a 3-year-old, a 4 or 5-year-old level, than other children? If so, why is it so? Is that a learned behavior, or could there be some genetic component to it?
2 things. If it is genetic, you can't be blamed, so it can't be sin.
Of course. No, absolutely.
I read a fascinating-
Unless there might be a more subtle
That's
way of
what I was
approaching
gonna
it.
say. I read a fascinating book this year. It's called On Human Behavior.
By?
It's a little old.
By?
Edmund Wilson. It's old because it's about 10 years old.
Yeah, he's a
In
famous,
terms of
he's a
genetics.
psychobiologist.
Yeah, he's a psychobiologist. And he explains it like this. He says, first of all, everything is genetic, which I have to agree with that. Everything has a genetic predisposition.
It makes sense,
He
obviously.
says that humans are not like animals. We're more highly developed, so that the genetics give you the predisposition. And you may have the predisposition to be both compassionate and, whatever, the opposite of compassion, non-compassionate. But then environment plays the role of bringing the one to the fore of the other. Right. And then some people will have more of a predisposition to be compassionate or more of a predisposition to be cruel.
Right,
But those predispositions can be overcome if the right environment is in place.
Right.
So
Okay,
everything
good.
ultimately has to be
Genetically based, but also nature plays.
You didn't get information.
Nurture and
Genetics and environment.
Yeah.
What about if you have a bad genetics and bad environment, are you
Right.
not to be blamed?
Well, that's
That's one
the
of
issue.
the tough questions. I mean, it's really a tough question of people that grow up in the Harlem environment, where they only see XYZ, or in a more radical case, where in the Nazi youth, who grew up in the Nazi youth, who only saw Nazis as an ideology, as a philosophy. How does one blame them? We who blame them have to assume that one has a component part to their humanity, which should automatically tell them this is wrong. Genocide is wrong. Again, take the extreme example. Somebody is born in, say, 1925, and he only grows up in a Nazi ideological household. His friends are all Nazis' children. He's part of Hitler Youth. He sees it in school. He sees it in his Nazi youth. He sees it in the army. Now it's 1944. Right? He's about 19 years old or 20 years old, and he's told to shoot to kill the Jew. Can he not? Should something tick off in him and say, hold on, that's wrong? Or should he just shoot? That's a serious question. Is aggression a natural human phenomenon? Is it learned in Conrad Lorenz's famous book? Or any of that? So that's certainly a very serious question. Is the Nazi morally responsible? How would he be? On the other hand, it's abhorrent to say that he's not. So Judaism would obviously say that there's a certain, it seems to be, as we see later on, a natural morality, which means you know what's right, you know what's wrong, almost naturally, without God telling you. Don't kill is almost instinctive. And again, that's not only a Jewish issue, it's a philosophical issue. It's been one that's debated for the last 2,000 years. And nobody can quite get a grip on that. Is morality natural or not? Is the law...
In the law, you have the naturalist and the positivist. We believe that you have to either follow the law, positivist and naturalistic. That's the higher moral order. And what really brought the naturalists in front was the Holocaust. That was the thing that happened. There was a case where a woman wanted to get rid of her husband. She rather have somebody else. So she found out he was doing something against Nazis, so she told the Nazis
Turned him in.
She turned him in, and so he was executed. And so by the law, she did everything right. She turned in a traitor to the Nazis, but obviously morally, there's big problems there. So, legally she did was right, but morally...
By their legal system.
Right, by their, can you say from a higher order, can you say that she did the right thing?
So who's prosecuting at this point? I mean, is she...
It was in Nuremberg. It was a case that actually came up like that.
And she was found guilty.
I think very close.
It's amazing.
That's
It's so hard to...
yeah.
It's an incredibly difficult issue. It's not so clear that it was morally wrong. You're introducing the element that she wanted to...
She wanted to get rid of him.
Get rid of him. So that's why she did it. So
Right.
motive over here plays a very strong role, the motive.
Right.
On the other hand, take any other person who turns her husband in when there's no motive. We're not going to hold that person responsible, are we? She's doing what's
Lord them for,
The Nazis would laud them. We don't have to laud them, but still we have to accept them.
but
What
you
does
don't
one
even
do?
have to look at it from the point of view of Nazi. There's a clear element of evil, but if you're looking in just a system of order or not, and turning just the husband-wife issue, turning in the husband to anybody, testifying against your husband kind of thing. If somebody's doing something against the law, that's a very, tricky.
Yeah, absolutely.
Brother turned into Unabomber.
Right. Well, that's not against. That was neither against the law nor was it immoral. That was not against the law nor was it immoral. That was an obvious call. And we'd all agree that that's an obviously correct decision to take.
His brother.
Of course. I don't think anybody would argue that natural law would say that it's inappropriate to do that. If one's brother was a criminal, turn him in. Of course.
So then, by that standard, the woman who turned in her husband
Well,
to the
but
Nazis
we
was,
were
he
talking
was a
about lots
criminal.
of life that's there. Maybe she wasn't turning him in because he was
Oh,
killed.
okay, well, now you're making degrees.
It's tough because that's the ambiguity of the legal/moral system. It's very, very hard, and certainly we struggle with those issues over here. Okay, so over here we're saying that there are it's clearly telling us there are transgenerational elements to sin, and
Is there transgenerational element to sin or to punishment? Over
Well-
here it sounds like punishment.
it's pour kid avon, Natalie.
You switch seats.
That's it.
We would be forever in the dark if you didn't come.
No, I don't know.
What did we do last week? I don't know. Probably didn't go out. That's what happened last week.
Didn't go out, did it?
Go out? No, it's good. No.
So proclaim means what, to be held
Take note,
accountable?
no, take note of. Take note of.
Thank you.
Here, your wife suffers the implications of your
Yeah.
hand vow. Look, Shemot Kav, chapter 20. Chapter 20 of Shemot. And Pasuk here or Vav.
Chapter 20?
Yeah, that's 10 Commandments. Okay, so Poked Avon Avot means that God takes note of this. Poked Avon Avot. The perversion of the forefathers is taken note of by God on the children. Is there punishment or not punishment here? Is a difficult question. It's not to get punishment, God takes note of it. The Sonai. Now, Sonai is a key element over here, which seems to impact upon our understanding of...
Mordechai did it.
which seems to impact upon understanding of the Pasuk. Now, it's only if the children are Sonai will this net result occur.
Sonai is referring to the children or to the original sinner?
I think it's to the children. That would make the Pasuk make sense. And Poked is not necessarily negative. Remember, Hashem Pakad Tzara Kasher Diber. God takes note of. But Poked means to take note of. Pay careful attention to. That could be negative or could be positive, presumably. So here we have this example where there seems to be a transgeneration element to sin. We had seen Cain. Cain also speaks about his Avon. Gadol Avonim min Yisor. Cain, in chapter 4, we had seen. Now, Cain was much more intense than a Het, yet it was not a rebellion against God. It was not called a Pesha, but rather it was sin of malice and intent, for which he is, of course, held responsible for. We then studied the sin of Adam and Chava. Adam and Chava is a breach against whose law? God's law. Was it a rational law? No. Was it a moral law? No. It almost seems as if Torah, at this point in the very first opening chapters, tells us that Adam is every man. Every man is prone to sin. What were the elements of sin in that context? If you recall, there was ta'ava, there's desire. Somebody wants your Nike sneakers, so commits a crime. Desire. There's sudden impulse, which we had seen. There's rationalization, which we had seen. These, from the Torah's point of view, are the elements that ultimately makes up sin in that context. Then we saw Cain, where you have jealousy, you have anger, which could also lead a person to transgression. But here it's a moral norm that's violated, as opposed to the so-called ritual norm in the first chapter. Interesting is that in both these cases, God plays a role. Obviously, he plays a role in the first case. It's his law that's being violated. Here, it's also his law that's being violated. It's a transgression against the rights of another human being. You have no right to someone else's life. You did so. And therefore, you are held responsible. And God is he who shall hold you responsible. So here you see almost two parallel lines crossing. Ritual law and moral law are both transgressions against divine law. Divine law is both A and B. And in both cases, you see that you have Bechira Chopshit, you have free will in both cases. Even, interesting, Adam and Chava can violate divine law in his own garden, such as the power of sin. A. B, in both cases, you are held responsible for your transgressions. Now, this is almost an answer to modern criminal theory, which does not want to hold a person responsible for his transgressions. He was raised in Harlem, his father was a drunk, his father wasn't even there, and else, and he went and shot and killed somebody. Now, whether or not we want to hold a person morally responsible, or theologically so, certainly, legally and socially, we have to hold that person responsible. We all agree. Right? We want to go a step further and say you are morally responsible, you killed somebody. But how would that person know not to kill for somebody's sneakers? His older brother did it, his friends did it, why should he do it? Yeah?
The Torah seems to be telling us that there is a natural morality.
Yes.
Because
Yeah, absolutely.
Adam is given a commandment which he breaks, and it's a ritual commandment. It's not.
Right.
There's no social or moral implication.
Right.
Cain killed. It never says anywhere prior that you shouldn't kill.
Correct.
He's punished, so it's a natural morality.
Right. It would seem to be, it's an interesting discussion, but it seems to be that from this biblical point of view, it's natural morality. I'm not sure how comfortable Chazal, the rabbis, Talmud, felt with that concept. It's an interesting question. It's a famous debate among some contemporary Jewish philosophers as to whether or not there is a natural morality. Most would prefer the Kantian system that law is commanded. Then it's clear cut. And they try to reinterpret these texts Talmudically to try to figure out how there was a communication, or that he should have known, or he didn't know, or
And is it
he learned from the law of the
very
jungle.
stretched?
Sorry?
They're
That's a whole debate. One article is Marvin Fox's article on natural law. It's natural law in the Jewish and Christian traditions. If you want to read it, we could share it with you. And he wants to hold that it is, and he holds the Rambam says the same thing, that there's no natural law.
Rambam holds there isn't a natural
Well,
law?
that's the two different philosophers argue about what the Rambam says.
Oh,
That
that's
personally
always
and
good.
so you have to analyze it on your own. It's a,
Doesn't having one of the 10 Commandments of saying you shouldn't kill, doesn't that sort of prove
that it's positive law. That will,
that you need God to make
well,
it
that's,
the law?
well, God,
That's not natural.
It's not natural.
That's another state of,
Development.
that's a later state of development. This is a
Right.
primal.
So this is a
Even if it's a natural law, it
Torah will-
still has to be stated in the Torah.
why? It tells us that there's a punishment for it.
Well, yeah, there always has to, same thing, yeah. There's no warning, there's no punishment, so it has to be
Right.
for that.
Right, so that would seem to be the reason. But so that doesn't really help us one way or the other. In other words, we need the statement of the Ten Commandments irrespective of the question of natural law or not.
Natural law, yeah.
Right, yeah, I agree. I hear that, sure. Okay, so but in any case, so you see that ethical sin is a violation of God's rule, as is the ritual sin. Both are. Keep in mind that in pagan literature, these two areas, the ritual and the pagan, were separate. And that one could very easily violate an ethical law and ritually atone for it. Interesting question whether or not you can do that Jewishly.
Say it again?
Can I commit an ethical transgression and atone for it ritually? I steal, I say sorry to God, and I bring a korban or something. The answer is no. If I steal, I have to make restitution to that person I stole from.
And
Both, correct. So Judaism seems to intersect these two lines of ritual and ethical law. Which I think is important to know because one asks the question, what's the point of ritual law? Judaism is a very ritualistic religion. And certainly it's one of the great questions the 20th century has asked, the Reform Jews have always asked. Reform Jews say we don't need ritual law. Even though human beings are ritually inclined, we shake hands. What is the shaking of a hand? Obviously it's a ritual. What does it signify as a ritual? Warmth, friendship, concern, caring, and yet it's a ritual. Right? Sorry?
And you're not carrying a weapon.
You're not carrying a weapon originally. Correct. So you have that ritual. It's a very nice ritual. It's a very meaningful ritual. And as human beings, we need ritual. So Torah seems to say that if you are ritually inclined, then you'll be more likely to follow an ethical law. One can argue that way. Teaching children. Is it easier to teach a child ritual law or ethical law? Now you're all parents. What do you think? Ritual law. It's almost obvious. You like killing Shabbat, your 3-year-old's going to say it's Shabbat. Ritually.
They cheat, because
we still stay
people
as
are
children.
So
Okay,
it's easy
good.
to get them, hooked on ritual. and-
Good. But do they get them ethically is my question. Do they teach them an ethical law? They go beyond that ritual.
I have to give them the benefit of the doubt and the credit to say that they do, but I think they emphasize the other so much that it's hard to see.
Okay, so we see that.
That's what I'm saying, they're not specific.
We saw that so far. You see, the Torah is almost trying to give you some sense of the psychology of sin, some sense of the motivational factors in sin, yet also aware of the legal, social implications of sin. Remember the very famous pasuk that Hashem tells Cain, what he was about to murder, and Hashem tells him again in chapter 4.
Control yourself.
Yeah, lapeta hatat rovetz. What verse is it? Chapter 4. It's pasuk. It's amazing how central a category sin is, biblically speaking. The first two encounters you have with human beings involve sin. And it remains a central category throughout the entire Tanakh. In the very first class we had, you remember how many times the word sin appears in Tanakh? Avon, Pesha, 1,000 times that these terms appear. When God in verse 6 says, why are you angry? Why are you depressed? Don't you know? And this seems to be, again, natural almost. Halot kivse'et. If you improve, you'll be lifted up. If you don't improve your ways, sin hatat crouches at the door, ve'elecha, and to you it has desires. Interesting question. Is the human being a tabula rasa, in John Locke's terms, or is there an inclination towards transgression? Do you think tabula rasa?
No.
Oh, no,
No,
okay.
that's why I should it, because it can't be top.
You don't like John Locke, huh? Because he's English, that's why.
It's old.
He's English, very old. Okay, so that's an interesting
You got
question.
this woman on a verified record. That's 122.
You're kidding
She
me.
verified.
She knew Van Gogh.
Van Gogh.
Van Gogh?
Going Van Gogh?
No, of course. He wasn't English.
Ugly and crazy, right?
I can't believe she knew it.
And not a nice manner.
On those words, she passed away. That's the nice lady.
She had his ear.
She was the one I was wondering about that. Okay, so here you have the pasuk, Tatim Shobol. However, Tatim Shobol, you can master it. Good. Let's look at a number of other texts to understand this biblical concept. Here a very important pasuk in Bereshit Tetvav. Bereshit Tetvav. Is that everyone?
We were waiting for you.
Oh, very good. Tetvav, pasuk Tetvav, pasuk Tetvav.
Tetvav?
Right. I think so. This is the midst of Abraham's great vision, where his children are promised a great land. Fantastic story. Right? Now, you, Abraham, everybody have it? Bereshit 15:15.
15?
Yeah, chapter 15. What's the problem?
What I do, I'm never good with numbers.
Bereshit 15. What's surprising over here? Your children shall be strangers in a foreign land for 400 years. They shall be afflicted and enslaved. But 13:14. This nation that shall inflict on this nation shall be judged, and afterwards your people shall leave with great rechush, great inheritance. V'atatavo, you shall die in peace. You shall be buried with great old age. The fourth generation shall return here. Now, here's the reason. Ki lo shalem avon ha'emori adhena. What was that telling me? What does shalem mean?
They didn't sin enough.
The sin of the Amorites, the Canaanites, has not yet reached that level. So, of course, we're talking about Avon, not Het and not Pesha. It cannot be Pesha, rebellion against God. And Het is just too much off the mark, innocent accident type of thing. So Avon is the right word. But what are we saying over here? These are intentional transgressions. What is it? We're not told. Whatever that Avon is, we don't know. We have to try to figure it out. It's certainly not Avodah Zarah, because in no place do we really find that a pagan is held responsible for his paganism. We'll see that later on. And here what God is saying is that their intentional transgressions, not ritual, and if not pagan then what, is not yet reached that plateau. That level we're in, they have to be expelled from the land. Right? So God says we have to wait. Presumably,
Coming back.
they're coming back.
Totally.
Yeah.
Is that what you were looking for? Okay.
Under the table, they're under the table. Charlie Claire just makes you surprised.
You know, they just thunder and lightning, horrible rain,
No.
all up and down just in New York.
But not here, right?
You tell me it wasn't amazing?
No. It drizzled at 7
It
o'clock.
was in the Met game, 400
To make things worse?
How do you know? You were there? Okay. Well, Jazz there. Well, Jazz there.
Oh, is it?
The Met game.
No, all right. No, come with there, he was the most
His son is at the
horrible
Met game.
lightning
Sammy
like right
something.
above us, and
Really?
sheep, it's,
I drove somebody home from shul today. I drove Harry's Shweki from home to the shul. He was on the ocean. There was the most fantastic, after the Arayat, there was the most fantastic rainbow. You can't imagine, over the ocean. I want to take the kids there, from one corner all the way to the other half.
Wow.
Beautiful. And it was raining, and it was sunny over here. The perfect conditions for a rainbow.
oh, yeah, to cry her when she walks in, or what?
Yes, let's do that. I told that's why I didn't make a cake, Emily, because of Renee. So next week I have to make a cake.
I can deal with it.
I'll make the cake. Sorry? I'm sorry?
It's when they brought, and they brought
They have an ice cream cake.
Yes,
So
Charlie brought a cake.
they have a
In the
cake.
refrigerator. We
The
checked
pizza.
it out.
What if he ate meat?
Ask Charlie, because it's his birthday party.
9 days.
Right.
That's also
Yeah.
leftovers.
Okay, so we have over here, we have to try to figure out what is the sin.
He didn't
But,
get the joke.
what, yeah.
The 9 days. Supposedly we
Can't eat
can't.
meat.
I know.
You could have it if you had leftovers. Oh, maybe.
He said, where's Charlie? He's supposed to yell at me.
I know. I know. Okay, so that this avon is not defined, it's not clear.
Maybe in this end of deal,
No, we don't have meat here, no. So here the question is raised, what exactly is the avon? But God wants Abraham to wait, and presumably if that Emori people never transgress that period, the Jews won't inherit the land. That's what avon is all about. Right? God says there has to be justice over here. There has to be something that's appropriate and right and correct, and it's not. If God were to say to Abraham, I am going to throw out these pagans, irrespective of their sin quotient, that would be unjust. Can't do it.
Doesn't this eliminate free will?
No, to the contrary. We cannot,
No, but God's, it's like it's a done deal.
no,
In the fourth generation, they'll come back.
It's not saying maybe in the fourth
not
generation.
saying
It says
maybe.
in the
It's
fourth
telling you what's
generation.
so it's prophetic. God having known what's going to happen.
Oh, okay. He's all right. He's
We
not
see too
involved.
much, right, we see it cannot be forced. Let's go one step further. Look at Sodom v'Amorah. Sodom v'Amorah, we have two contexts. Sodom v'Amorah. And again, if we look at Sodom v'Amorah in Parashat Vayirah, is there any sin that is stated about Sodom v'Amorah? We look at chapter 18, Abraham fights and everything else, and look at chapter 18, verse 20. God says, the agonizing screams of the people of Sodom and Amorah is great, and hatatam is very heavy. That's hard to understand. What is a ze'akah? Where does ze'akah play a role? Where else does ze'akah play a role?
It's in different places where he says, I hear the screaming of the widows and the orphans.
Good.
They're screaming.
Okay, ze'akah seems
So
to...
in this time,
Exactly. Ze'akah is the oppressed, the cry of the oppressed. Right? So here's Sodom and Amorah. If anything, their people are oppressed. It is great, Rabbah, it's great. And their sin is very heavy. Now we've been seeing sin as that which is off the mark. Not so serious, not a rebellion against God. Now, they had no God to rebel against. So the Pesha can't play a role over here. Now we understand that. But why are we calling what they were doing as het? They're guilty of two things. One, they're guilty of Zakat Sodom Amorah Kirabah, and the cries of the oppressed is great, and their off the mark het are very heavy. How do we understand that?
Hatatam is their sins.
Their hets, yeah, their hatatam.
Their
Right?
hatam. Yes.
It's very heavy.
Their
Even the term heavy is an unusual combination. Right, one should check see if it appears any place else. I don't remember to do that, but one should do that. Does het ever apply with kaved? Applies one, I think one other place, but in any case, what is it? Why do you use the word heavy with a het? Why het in this context? Het is that which is... Yes. Het is a off-the-mark kind of... Again, what's the original pasuk in Mishleh? You shot an arrow, you're off the mark. That's called a het. Off the mark.
Again, over here we can say that they didn't know better. They didn't have
Okay.
a frame of reference.
Good. So what you're saying is that if that's the case, then a person can be part of society where he doesn't know better, he's off the mark, and yet still be held responsible for it.
They're still going to punish
I
him.
forgot what book they say, one of the prophets, they talk about it. They say it's a social,
Well, the Zakat tells me it was social transgression,
right, but what?
not which are theological. Yeshayahu probably. Perek Al Yeshayahu puts
They
it.
mention it and they say that it's social, because, socially they oppress the poor.
Right.
And
The Midrash, of course, makes that very clear. The Midrash is the very famous statement which tries to concretize what really is sometimes biblically implicit. And here the case, of course, was that some poor man came in, some little young woman gave him to eat, and then she was taken, and they didn't want people, throngs of people coming to, beggars coming to them, and therefore they had to punish her properly. So they took her and they covered her with honey, and they put her on top of the roof, and she was eaten to death, stunk to death by the bees. Now that's still, but that's just only a dramatization of this Ze'akah story, right? And Sodom furthermore had the famous, what's it called, the Crustian bed. What's a Crustian bed? They stretched you if you were short, and they cut you if you were too long for it. Sorry?
They tell that to the kids.
First, right?
Yeah.
Official Midrash.
Well, it's not in the text. I should tell them it's not here. But in any case,
What's the Midrash?
I didn't get that
What
one.
is it
I
trying
would,
to tell us?
it's only trying to concretize evil of Sodom. Why? It's an interesting point. Why does the Midrash try to do that?
Tell her Midrash 101.
I would think because it wants us to be impacted upon by the text. It's not good enough to simply say that they were evil.
Right.
Because we want to know how, but if you want this to have a powerful effect on me, tell what they did that was wrong. Good. So why does the Bible do that then? Images are concrete, images I need.
That's not the
Right.
Bible's intent. The Bible wants you to fill in the gaps.
Why?
Gives you flexibility.
Right. The flexibility of generations is what's necessary to make a code of law work. Now, a rabbi giving a sermon on this parasha would of course raise all these issues about the terms that's used, etc., and make the point that het over here, which is only off the mark, but over here, sometimes a learned response can still be a transgression. They learned socially what to do, which happened to have been, from a biblical point of view, a het. Not from their point of view, obviously. From their point of view, it was not inappropriate whatsoever. It was a learned response of evil that they are still being held responsible for. In other words, a society can construct itself to the point where it is such a bad society, an evil society, but they won't even know it is so. It becomes normative. Good. We're going to see how that plays itself out also in the Mabul.
Is the punishment, equal to what the transgression is?
Well, in this particular case, one likes to view it as very midah k'neged midah, measure for measure. Why? Because one sees them as having overturned all of the natural moral norms of goodness. In the words of, I think it's Yeshayahu, Omnim lara tov la tov ra. That's when there's no hope for your society anymore, because there is no framework of reference. What do I do now? You've learned, you see, in every which learned way that you can learn about morality, you are seeing the opposite, as in Nazi Germany. That's what's astounding about this. This is contemporary, it's current. You kill the Jews and you let live the Nazi Aryans. So they had overturned all of the sources of morality. And of course, what is their punishment? They are overturned. The society is overturned because they overturned morality.
They were just destroyed.
Overturned. It's kimach bechat. There's an element over here of a volcanic eruption.
I mean, not all the Nazis were destroyed.
No, I'm talking about Sodom Ve'amorah.
Your question is whether there was an overturning. No, the term uses kimach bechat Sodom ve'amorah. There was an overturning, and it seems to have been that the overturning was a volcanically related issue. It's gofrit ba'merach sedakol arza. So the way scholars want to see Sodom ve'amorah, they see that it was some kind of volcanic eruption, and there are volcanoes in Israel. Right, that's well known. It's in fact one impending, they say, next 50
Volcano or
years.
earthquake?
Earthquake, which is usually associated with volcanic activity. So there were earthquakes and stuff. And I do want to explain, in Sarna's book, Understanding Genesis, he does say that this Jordan River is on that one of the faults. And there is occasional earthquakes, which case will ignite the sulfur and the bituminous coal, whatever it is, bituminous, and that's where you smell the smell of burnt stuff. So you have that kind of an effect.
When was the last earthquake?
Israel was 100 years ago, in 1898, 1894.
The major one,
Yeah,
because they're always tremors.
yeah, they're tremors. They say and Israel's not prepared for it at all. It's a horrific story.
They say the buildings aren't prepared.
Not at all, not at all.
Are they on the fault line? Is that what you're saying?
Part of Israel is. Part of it is on the fault line. They're not prepared for it at all. They couldn't worry about it. How could you worry? I mean, I'm sorry?
They're too wrapped up.
In fighting 100 million Arabs. I mean, 5 wars and everything else. And that's, they say it's very frightening. I mean, it's, who knows? But it's next 50 years, something like this. Very difficult.
Well, that's a good way to get all the refugees employed, let them rebuild everything.
Okay. Take a trip. Well, yeah, if you go, it's more powerful to tell them that. Okay, now, interesting, of course, the only concrete example that we have of the evil of Sodom, which we all see right now, is Lot. Right? Lot's case is an interesting one. People are outside. They're guests. And of course, the Midrash uses this as well. And he begs them, come inside. You stay outside, you're going to be who knows what. He brings them in, takes care of them. He's Abraham's chesed kind of person, little chasadim. They surround the house. Bring them out, v'neda'a otam. Question is, what do they want to do to them? Neda'a. Of course, the word yada is a sexual term. It has to do with what? The most profound kind of human relationship, knowing a woman, experiencing a man at its most profound level is the way that you know that person, in quotes. Right? That's the most profound term the Bible uses for sexual relationships, though it uses shikva, lishkov, which is more carnal. It uses vayavo eleha, he came unto her, which means it's just a matter of passionless physical involvement. Right? Those are 3 terms that's used for sexual relationships. So now, how could we use this term of v'neda'a otam that the people don't say if it's such a brutal, horrifying, homosexual act? Why would the Torah use the term v'neda'a otam, which is a term of profound sensitivity and understanding in that context, which is actually the opposite of it? The answer is one more example of Sodom and Gomorrah overturning the meaning of words, overturning what's right and what's wrong. They took the beauty of the sexual relationship and they made it into something horrific. And worse is that they see it as neda'a otam. They see it as neda'a, when in fact it's a carnal, animalistic relationship. So again, Sodom and Gomorrah has overturned, and therefore, of course, they will pay the price for that. Good. Let's look at 1 more or 2 more contexts. In Het HaMabul, we have the very famous generation of the flood. What was their sin? What did they do that was so terrible? Why are they being punished? Look at the beginning of Parashat Noah, which is chapter 9, is it 9, 10? Welcome back.
You're all getting up now?
Soon. Talking about the flood.
Yes, it is raining outside.
That's fine. You start building your ark. Now, what's the sin of the people of the flood? Is it a sin? Is it a pasha? Well, it can't be pasha, again, because there's no God against whom they are rebelling. We agree. So it can't be pasha. How is it characterized? But tishachet atzipnei Elohim. Now, the land was destroyed, devastated before God, and the land is full of Hamas. God sees the land and it's devastated because all basar, flesh, all animals even, has self-destroyed. Welcome.
We
Good to see you. That's good. How you doing? Good to see you. Welcome. That's big. So we see over here is that, what does Hashem see? Hashem sees over here that Every basar, self-devastated, it's derech. What does that mean? There's something not natural going on over here. Et darko means it follows its derech, its appropriate, proper pathway. It perverted the pathway. How does the Midrash concretize that statement? How does it provide an image? Sexual perversions, right? Sexual perversions. So the Midrash sees this as a sexual term, that even the animals were perverse. Okay? Now the question is that in any way followed any context in our text? Any context over here? Well, we look at the text above, and we see something very strange. In the beginning of chapter 5, what do you have? Pasuk Aleph, right? Perek Vav, Pasuk Aleph. Perek Vav, above. 5 Pasukim above. 6 above, right. Vayhi ke'hem ha'adam, mankind became plentiful on the earth, and they had women, daughters, banot. Now there were men of Bnei Elohim. Very strange term. We know it doesn't mean sons of God. Could mean men of stature. Elohim is a term of stature.
How do you know it doesn't mean sons of God? Most Mefarshim call it angels. Most.
Yeah. The word, I'm only commenting that shot-wise, this could mean Elohim means men of power. The word Elohim means power, means a judge. A judge also is the term used for Elohim. So the question is, what is the original intent of this verse? Chapter 6, verse 2. So whoever these people are, men of power, men of stature, do we want to see it as angels? Wouldn't be that meaningful, I don't think.
I made an argument that it's pagans. They're sons of other gods. They're not Elohim, Elohim.
Okay.
Elohim.
So sons of...
They're pagans.
Oh, okay, good. Good. Okay,
Rabbi
so
Rabbi knocked me out.
Who did?
Rabbi Rabbi.
Why?
He said because when it's Elohim, it's modified, and here it's not. It's usually modified.
What is pagans?
Yeah. When it's talking about
Lo
Elohim,
yelcha
not
harim.
Elohim. When it's Elohim everywhere else, it's modified. It's not by itself. It doesn't stand alone.
Well, we can Lo yelcha harim panai. Lo yelcha, do not have other foreign gods. What Elohim there is modified by?
Foreign.
Harim. Other.
Other.
I want us to study it. No, I don't know if that's the case. This is B'nai. When you have the word B'nai, that would be the modification of Elohim. So it could be pagans.
Not only that, it's a phrase.
Yes. Okay. Yeah. I'm sorry.
It's higher.
Doesn't always apply. In other words, in Yonah, which we'll look at in a few minutes, you'll see that Elohim, that says Vayi'u, the people of Nineveh, Vayi'u Elohim or Ha Elohim. Who are they fearful of? Of Hashem, God, or of their pagan gods? That they're afraid they're going to be destroyed. Look at it in a minute. Okay, why does it study this? But what happens over here? These men of stature, or of power, or judges, saw these women, kitovot hena. They were good. Now, when you use the word tov, in any context in Bereshit, what should you think of? God's pronouncement about the world is tov. Tov me'od. Or after every single day, other than Tuesday, he sees everything is tov, tov, tov. So here I have a tov. They saw that these girls are tov. So what does that mean? They took wives from whomever they chose. What's the problem with that? They didn't ask. Here is born the caveman image of banging them on the head, grabbing them by the hair. You have that in England, that caveman image? You have that there too?
Yeah.
You have cavemen there still?
Sure.
I know it.
You're taking home by taxi.
A taxi, more civilized than we are, right? In a top hat, of course. And they put them into the cave and they did their thing. So that seems to be the transgression. How do I know? Look at the next pasuk. God says, "Lo yadun rachi ba'adam le'olam." No longer will my presence dwell among mankind. B'shegam hu basar. He's too physical. He's too fleshy. And notice well the pasuk below. Kishchit kol basar et darko. It's the giving in to the natural human, physiological, biological inclinations. Rape. That this seems to be dealing with. So this pasuk therefore tells me that that was their transgression. It wasn't paganism, it wasn't avodah. Rather it was this pasuk of Perek Vav, pasuk Bet, shifting forward, becoming a norm of society. This becomes a norm of society. Therefore God says, I'm going to limit human beings' life, Then we talk about the children that were born. And then, Pasuk 5, God sees the evil of mankind, that his thoughts are only this way, therefore God regrets having created man. Sorry to his heart, therefore he's erased. As God fashioned man out of the dust of the earth, water shall erase that creation. Man is dust. You sprinkle it, you water it, what happens to dust? If you take clay, it disappears. That's why it's imher. Imher is the midah k'nei midah. Man was fashioned out of dust and hardened, baked by the sun, and then and in this human being was breathed the soul of life. Now, if you just massively inundate that clay item, what will happen to it? It'll just be erased. So this over here, the sin over here seems to be this giving in to the physicality, to the biology, to the inclinations, without respecting the what of the other. Tzelem Elokim, correct, exactly. That's what it seems to be over here. It's got it. Without the respect, sorry, Renee?
Can the sin also be us equating goodness with the visual world? The way it said they saw that it was good. It's saying that what is good is what appears visually pleasing.
It's an interesting point. You're saying that they made a moral judgment. Tovot.
Right.
Tov, again, is a very powerful biblical term, Tov. Again, it's the key term in Bereshit. In the creation narrative, the key term is Tov. God sees that it's all Tov. They saw, you'll see the parallel. Vayad, God saw that it's Tov. They now see that what is Tov, the physicality of the woman, giving into their own physicality. And the Tzelem Elokim element of a human being should want you to rise above that. In the sexual description in Perek Dalet, you don't have any seeing. In Perek Dalet, Vayeda Adam echad ishto, he experiences her. Interesting, there's no term for seeing there, right? He experiences her, he knows her in a biblical sense, he becomes intimate with her. It's a psychological experience that gives birth to a child, but not a physical seeing. To the contrary, where does Vayad play a role? In chapter 3, where she sees the tree. It looks tasty. So there's much to be said for Renee's point that seeing leads to it. Now, interesting also that in that chapter 3, you also have the word Vayad, correct? Also the word Yod, you take it in Yod Tov Vara. The same words play. You'd be like God, knowing good from evil. So all of these elements seem to indicate that the transgression is related to that, and Vayad here also plays a role, as does the word Tov. Correct, good. Okay, so this seems to define the pagan sin. The pagan sin of Sodom, Amorah, and Mabul, all of these transgressions seem to be a perversion of that which is natural. Similarly, you have over here the Timla'at's Hamas. Hamas, of course, is a very powerful biblical term, and seems to be the death knell for a society. See that over here, when you are a Hamas person, then you have to die. The society cannot continue to exist. Where else do we find Hamas? We find it with Yonah. You don't have, so those of you who have Tanakhs, some do, some don't. Look at Yonah, right? Yonah is, of course, very famous. Yonah is the prophet who attempted to flee from God during the middle of the 8th century. 750 before the Common Era, God tells him, go to the pagan city, Nineveh. God's concern goes beyond the Judean. Exclusively, go to the pagan city, right? And say to it that the evil has come up before me. Yonah says, I'm not going. Nobody knows why, but you want to discuss it right now. I know why. I won't tell you. You know why too? No, you don't. Kings 2:14, 23. Kings 2:14, 23.
Because he sees further. He sees that eventually they're going to come back and destroy it, even after they do Teshuvah.
Not there, but not there.
Just showing off.
Not that well, he's showing off.
He didn't want them. He didn't want them to do Teshuvah.
He did not want to, correct.
Yeah.
Right, he did not want to do it, because that's Charlie's point. Because he saw that they're going to eventually... Right. No, the answer is 2 Kings 14, 23, 24.
That's not fair, that's what's done.
I'm not looking at now. You do this homework, that's your homework. Go on, do it.
Not really.
Sorry?
He didn't think they were deserving of.
Yeah, you're right. God says yes, he says no. But that's my point right now. So I'm not worried about it right now. You want to deal with the Kings 2:14, do it later. Right now, let's look at their transgression. So again, God tells him to do, he doesn't do so, he gets swallowed by this great big
Well,
Who says a whale?
fish.
It's a big fish that David one day would want to catch.
That's what you learn in
And
the second
you-
I
grade.
want to know what inside of it.
Can be arranged. Can be arranged. It's swallowed by a big fish. It's very funny. It's not a whale. It's a big fish, right? Now, the question is, what is their transgression? We look at chapter 3. He goes there 3 days, gets there in 1 day. He only has 5 words. Od 40 yom ninveh neheret. That's all he says, right? Ninveh nehpechet. Sorry, nehpechet. It'll be overturned. Key word. Like Sodom and Amorah, overturned. What did they do wrong? Well, they believed in God. V'yaminu asher be'Elohim. That's unadorned. Now, what is it referring to? Hashem? I'm sure not. You think so, Jaime? How would you think so? Were you there? What? They believe in God?
Because otherwise, why did they make teshuvah?
Because they believe in the gods who punish. They believe in punishment comes in the wake of transgressions, for sure. It's good paganism, but why would they get to Hashem? Can't see that. They call a fast day because they believe in the gods. Sure, get punished. But B'Shu Sakim, they wear sackcloth from the young to the old. All dressed in sackcloth, man and animal. So how strange it is that the animal also is dressed in sackcloth. Strange pagan notion. They call out to Elohim. They call out to God, Behoska. I would think to whomever they thought is God. Good. Each man returns from his derech, evil derech, umin hamas asher bechapehem. So the key here is also Hamas, as it is in Hetamavur. Here you have the 2 common words of derech in both places, as well as the term Hamas.
But what you're saying here is that the Goyim can make their own teshuvah to whoever God they...
Sure. They're not held responsible for paganism.
And they can have their own gods.
Yeah,
Sheva Mitzvot B'nai Noach doesn't have.
it does, but the question is at what point are they made aware of that? That's one question. But let's leave that aside for a second. So Hamas is in both places, and one would think that the transgression is not paganism that they're being held responsible for, rather Hamas, a perversion of the social order. And again, because the word ne'epechet is over here, overturned, it seems to be that a society can become so self-corrupted that no longer is good and evil very evident. If it gets to that point where it's not evident whatsoever, it's no matter what happens, and you're overturned. Here they were still aware. Here they could still see that they were perverting the social order, the good and evil. Again, the verse in Yeshayahu is Omrim Ra Torah Tov Ra. When you think that which is good is evil, that which is evil is good, then that would be an indication of Hamas, which merits destruction on a pagan level or on the Jewish level, of course. Interesting though, I don't think we ever find Hamas, I'm trying to think, if we ever find Hamas among Judeans, among those Jews who lived in Judea during the 8th, 7th, 6th century, before the Churban Ben HaMikdash. Were the Jews guilty of Hamas? Here we see the Mabul guilty of Hamas, here we see that Yonaz Ninveh was guilty of Hamas. Were the Jews guilty of Hamas, and then we have to think
They
about,
were guilty of Sinat Binah, but not Hamas.
that's by Cheni period, that's found years later. And that's a Talmudic comment. I'm talking about a biblical comment, trying to figure it out here. Okay, so what we see over here is, again, sin, transgression, plays a great role. And in all of these cases, of course, one wants to note that there is free will to transgress. There is free will to do teshuvah. In one case, it is taken up, and in this case, in Mabul, it is not done so. And of course, everybody is held responsible for their deeds, on the Jewish level, on the non-Jewish level. Yeah.
Why in Mabul are they not warned? There's no warning.
Good.
There was, weren't they
question-
always asking him about the ark?
Well, that's the Midrashic comment. The Midrashic comment on Noah is that he had to build for 120 years.
For years?
120 years. The Midrashic comment, sorry? Years. In order for, sorry? For the purpose of having them ask. But if that's not according to the Pshat. The simple meaning of it does not tell us they were ever warned. The question is why? And the answer would seem to be in the very statement, the Shahid asked me, Elohim, there was no hope. With the Shahid Ta'atz, the land is, the society can become so self-corrupt, and there's just no help, no hope that anyone's going to help them. What could help this people? Once you reach that stage of Hashhata Ta'atz,
Sodom was not warned either.
correct, right. Once you've overturned that point, and again, the question is, if that sounds impossible to you, then you look at Nazi Germany and raise the question. What was Nazi Germany? It had a structured society that was able to mobilize enough forces to produce an incredible killing machine. Mind-boggling. When you think about the, 12,000 that were killed every hour or so. To have killed the numbers, 8, 10, 15 million people in the course of is astounding. How do you do that? Technologically, how do you do that? What do you do to people? I mean, burn and bury, and it's an amazing killing machine. I mean, one of the indictments of Nazis was that they were able to harness all the powers of modern society in a killing effort, which is exactly the opposite of what progress always meant. Progress meant we technologically advance ourselves to change, to better, to improve, to impact, to bring the Mashiach and all that. They reversed that whole value. It was an incredible throwback of going back to the Enlightenment period. The Enlightenment began with this notion of improving utopia. Let's get to the end of the road. Mashiach. That's the modern society has adopted our concept of a messianic period of time. Mashiach. They did exactly the reverse. It's an astounding, barbaric, uncivilized period of time. And it worked. They did it. It's incredible. It wasn't only one man. I mean, whether or not you take Goldhagen's thesis seriously or not, that they all knew and all participated. Certainly there were at least 1 million people who were part of the Nazi party. There were 1 million Nazis. Of the 60 million people in Germany, there were 1 million Nazis. Amazing. From the doctors and lawyers, professors, Heidegger is one of the most brilliant of 20th century philosophers, and he was a Nazi. So it makes sense. He's been studied about goodness his whole entire life. He bought into it. He did it. Evil knows no bounds. It's a question. Most say they renounce it after they lost the war. Smart guy. I mean, he's no jerk. He's teaching philosophy. How's to get it right? Gotta have some brains up there. Heidegger, forget it, doesn't matter. Okay, now I want to look at two other issues. Two other issues. Very quickly. There are two other interesting contexts over here, where one with Abraham and Paro. Paro takes Sarah. Innocently, it seems. Right? This is in Lech Lecha, in chapter 12 or 13. Let's see his reaction. He's going to be held responsible for this. Abraham in chapter 12, verse 11, Yud Bet, Yud Aleph, says what? Abraham says to his wife, I know you are beautiful. Physically you're beautiful, very attractive woman. You have dignity, you have majesty, you have glory. Right? When the Egyptians shall see you, they will say, this is his wife, they'll kill me and they will give you life. Please say you're my sister, it will be good to me for you, and I will live because of you. Right? Not a very nice proposal. Right? The Ramban is very upset at Abraham for this, and he sees it as a transgression.
So he wouldn't be allowed to speak.
No, absolutely not. Ramban cannot speak in our synagogue. That's correct. Good point. But it doesn't, so I think it's anyway, for me. Abraham comes, the Egyptians see her, that she's beautiful. They see, again, they see Renee, you seeing? Chapter 12, verse 15. They see her, Paro's off see her, they praise her to Paro. She is taken, Batukah, the same word that we had seen above. The word to take means to grab, beyond your will. Sorry? The caveman, right. Same word is used. She's taken to Beit Paro. Abraham is, of course, lavishly brought gifts for, compensated for her, all kinds of fantastic gifts. Now, verse 17. God strikes Paro, great massive nigaim, plagues his whole household because of Sarah. Paro calls Abraham, says, what did you do to us? Why don't you tell me she's his wife? Now again, many questions abound. How did the nigaim imply that she's his wife? Midrash's answer, they couldn't conceive. For the period of time that Sarai is in the house of Paro, no woman, no man could have sexual relationships. So Paro understood from this, to answer that question, how does the question of negaim, these great plagues, equal, he knows automatically that she's his wife. Either way. Why did you tell me she's system? I took her as a wife, now take your wife, go, kach baleh. Right? And Paro says to everybody, don't anyone touch him. Get out. Right? That's one context. Hold on to that context, and look at the next context where this happens, with Avimelech. Right? That happens again with Avimelech. Where is that? That is in
17.
Let's look at it in 17, 1 second. Right before to the daughter.
Isn't it first?
Right here, 20. 20. Now over here, 20, Abraham has the same exact story. Wife, sister of Abimelech, is the king, Vayikach. He takes her. Again, to deny a person their freedom, their rights, is a violation of Sin Elohim. Chapter 20, verse 2. He takes her. He denies her. Over here? Are they here?
And what's that?
Vayikach, he takes her. Yeah, I don't know. He takes her. Elohim comes to Abimelech in the night. Elohim does not come to Paro. Raise the question. Why does Elohim come to Abimelech and not come to Paro in the middle of the night? The Lord says, you're going to die. Paro is not told that. These are differences one has to take note of. You will die for this woman that you took, denying her freedom, denying her tzedem Elohim. She's a married woman. Abimelech did not have sex with her. Abimelech lo karav eleha, did not come close to her. But Yoma says, God, shall you kill a righteous man as well as a non-righteous person? So he argues, how long he told me, who's the he over here? Abraham told me she's his sister. And she also said, he's my brother. But totally Rabbi, with the wholeness of heart, with clean hands, I did all this. Wow. It's a very powerful argument. But Yom Elav, God says to him, Elohim, the God says to him in the dream, Gam Anochi Hadati, I also knew, again that interesting term, that with a cleansed heart you did all this. Therefore, by I prevented you, I held you back from sinning against me. It's a head. Why a head? Because it wasn't your fault. Because he said sister, she said brother, you wanted to marry her.
It's not off the mark, this one, though.
It's off the mark. It's not his fault. It's not intense.
For Abimelech, it's off the mark.
Yes, Abimelech is off the mark. Therefore, I didn't let you touch her.
But it's more like Shagaga.
Yeah, she got God, but
You didn't do it with the mouth.
the fine line between head and shagaga should be explored.
It's even more than Shagaga. What's that other term?
Honest.
It's like honest.
No, because he still took her.
He still took her. Oh.
Right. There's something wrong with taking, it would seem to be.
The royal imperative doesn't apply.
Correct. Ve'ata is a violation of Tzedem Elohim. Now give the wife back to the husband. He's a Navi. He's a man of God. He has the word of God on his lips. And he could pray for you. And you will live. If you don't, no, you shall surely die. You and all that you have. But it goes over. It says to all these things that happen. The people are very afraid. Pagans are afraid. And it goes to Abraham, what did you do to me? How did I sin against you? What did I do wrong to you that you caused me to do something wrong against you? That you brought upon myself and my whole kingdom this great transgression. Not pesha, of course. Not even, it wasn't intentional perversity. It's not an avon. It was a hata'ad. So he knew that it was wrong to do this. Avimelech rebuked Abraham for what he did. An appropriate rebuke. It's not done where a man gives his wife to the king, or lets her play the role of sister, in which case she and he can fall by the wayside. So Abraham says, I thought there was no fear of God in this place, in Pasuk 11. They would kill you because of my wife. And then he has this interestingly lame excuse, she's my half-sister. Which is not the point, obviously. I mean, why did he say that? And oh, by the way, she is in fact she's the daughter of my father, daughter of my mother, therefore I married her. Okay, so he gives him this whole entire story. So here again you have an interesting contrast that should be studied more, but not right now, between Avimelech and Paro. Both have the same trappings, but both should be very different. And it's a head in this context over here. Something different in Paro's context, interesting. And yet in both cases, of course, as all these cases, A, that they are pagans, God holds them responsible. B, they have the freedom, the freedom to choose to do or not to do, as they do. And that is really part of the motif of the entire biblical record, where every Navi speaks to the Ovdei Avodah Zarah, pagans, for violations of the moral law. This, taking another man's wife, though you think she's a sister, the taking is a transgression. It's a violation of the moral law. Avimelech very clearly sees that and expresses that.
What's the when he takes Bathsheba?
We should study it. It's a good question. Not right now, because it's late. But it's certainly a very good question. How should we analyze David and Bathsheba? What terms are used? Is it a pesha? Is it a avon? Is it a het? How are we to understand that? One would think it's a het. Why? Because it's passion.
But it's, come on, when he sends the husband off to war, that's premeditated. He didn't-
Okay, so
no, he didn't
well,
just do
that
it
could be
in the
viewed
house.
differently. Good. That act of the second act is different than the first act. So we should divide both acts differently into both. In any case, also, we don't have time to do it right now, but look at Amos, the first chapter. Amos goes to the pagan nation that surround Israel. Ashosha, Peshai Israel, 750 before the Common Era, and he looks at their transgressions. In all cases, the transgressions are not ritual nor pagan, but rather only moral. So these are all transgressions of the moral order. This set against the backdrop of the sin in chapter 3, which is the ritual violation. Both actually are violations of God's law, God's rule, and again, one is punished for all of these. God judges it all. There's an intermingling across sin of the ethical and the ritual. And one would think that part of the reason for that is to see the ritual as that which strengthens the ethical. But in either which case, you still have the heavy emphasis in the book of Bereshit, but throughout the entire Tanakh, on Het, Avon, and Pesha. What we're going to do next week is go to the rabbinic view of this for 1 week, 1 or 2 weeks. How do the rabbis view Het, Avon, and Pesha? We saw the psychological levels in the Torah. We saw all these motivational questions, and then go to the Rambam for Gina's.
Next week.
Come next week.
Next week we're off.
Next week, the following week, right? The following week, yeah. Okay? Thank you.
Thank you.
You know,